Nicholas D. Kristof, considered one of the bright lights of whatever they are, the left. I don't know what's so bright about his light. Why? Because he's on the New York Slime's op-ed page or opinion page? A lot of stupid people there, to be perfectly honest with you. But this is worth discussing because it gives you a very big window into the minds of the leftists and some of the more prominent leftists about what they would do if they could. And I think that's important so you know what we're up against. And the title of his remarkable piece is called Our Lefty Military. Our Lefty Military. Says as we search for paths out of America's economic crisis, many suggest business as a paradigm for cutting costs. According to my back-of-the-envelope math, top CEOs earn as much as $1 a second around the clock, partly by cutting medical benefits for employees. So they must be paragons of efficiency, right? This is a typical Marxist claptrap. The federal government is massively restructuring our society, draining enormous resources out of the private sector, killing jobs, not for millionaires and billionaires, for working people, destroying the housing market and every other market you can think of, and he's focused on CEOs that earn a lot of money, who have, by the way, no impact on you, me, or anybody else when they do. None. Zero. And yet, when the government steals 20, 30, 40, 50% of our income at all levels, that's a good thing. But let me go on. He says, actually, I'm not sure. The business sector is dazzlingly productive, but it also periodically blows up our financial system. Yet, if we seek another model, one that emphasizes universal health care and educational opportunity, one that seeks to curb income inequality, we don't have to turn to Sweden. Rather, look to the United States military. Remember what we talked about yesterday? That the whole process of trying and failing and trying again creates wealth, creates new products and services, expands opportunity for all people. It's not a perfect system, but it is the most perfect system. Well, in this, Nicholas Kristof absolutely rejects capitalism. And as such, rejects liberty. He goes on. He says, you see, when our armed forces are not firing missiles, they live by an astonishingly liberal ethos, and it works. The military helped lead the way in racial desegregation. And even today, it does more to provide equal opportunity to working-class families, especially to blacks, than just about any social program. It has been an escalator of social mobility in American society because it invests in soldiers and gives them skills and opportunities. By the way, like all other aspects of our government, where do we get the money for this? Mr. Producer, where do we get the money to spend on any part of the federal government? The people, the private sector, the capitalist system. The capitalist system funds the military and everything else in the government. The United States Armed Forces, he writes, knit together whites, blacks, Asians, and Hispanics from diverse backgrounds, invests in their education and training, provides them with excellent health care and child care, and it does all this with minimal income gaps. A senior general earns about 10 times what a private makes, while, by my calculations, CEOs at major companies earn about 300 times as much as those cleaning their offices. That's right, the military ethos can sound pretty lefty. It's the purest application of socialism there is. Wesley Clark, the retired 4-star general and former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO forces in Europe, told me, and he was only partly joking. Of course, Wesley Clark is a knucklehead. We know that. I'll address this in a second. It's a really fair system, says Wesley, and a lot of thought has been put into it, and people respond to it really well. The country can learn from that sense of mission, he said, from that emphasis on long-term strategic thinking. The military is innately hierarchical, yet it nurtures a camaraderie in part because the military looks after its employees. This is a rare enclave of single-payer universal health care, and it continues with a veterans health care system that is much lower cost than the American system as a whole. Perhaps the most impressive achievement of the American military isn't its aircraft. Now listen to this. This is important. Isn't its aircraft carriers, stunning as they are. In other words, the most impressive achievement of our military isn't the fact that it fights and wins wars and secures the nation. No. Rather, it's the military daycare system for working parents. Well, one of America's greatest failings is underinvestment in early childhood education. He goes on, the military manages to provide superb child care. The cost depends on family income and starts at $44 per week. I absolutely think it's a model, said Linda Smith, Executive Director of the National Association of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies. Mrs. Smith, who used to oversee the military daycare system before she retired from the Defense Department, said that the military sees child care as a strategic necessity to maintain military readiness and to retain highly trained officers. Christoph goes on, one of the things I admire most about the military is the way it invests in educating and training its people. Its universities, the military academies are excellent. It has ROTC programs at other campuses around the country. Many soldiers get medical training, law degrees, or PhDs while in service, sometimes at the country's finest universities. There's the Army War College, the Naval War College, the Air War College, giving top officers a mid-career intellectual and leadership boost before resuming their careers. It's common to hear bromides about investing in human capital, but the military actually shows that it believes that. Partly as a result, it manages to retain first-rate officers who could earn far higher salaries in the private sector. And while the ethic of business is often gimme, look at his hate for the private sector. The military inculcates an ideal of public service that runs deep. In Afghanistan, for example, soldiers sometimes dig into their own pockets to provide supplies for local schools. Of course, that never happens here, does it? Granted, it may seem odd to seek a model of compassion in an organization whose mission involves killing people. It's also true that the military remains often unwelcoming to gays and lesbians, and is conflicted about women as well. And of course, the opportunities for working-class Americans are mingled with danger. But as we as a country grope for new directions in a difficult economic environment, the tendency has been to move toward a corporatist model that seeks investments in people as woolly-minded sentimentalism or as an unaffordable luxury. That's not the only model out there. So as the United States Armed Forces try to pull Iraqi and Afghani societies into the 21st century, maybe they could do the same for America's. This is stunning. Basically, what Christoph wants is really socialism without the military. You know, they do the missiles, they have aircraft, but what I really like about it is all the infrastructure we build around it. Now, folks, this is pretty scary. The reason we have a military the way we do, the reason is so that we can have the finest fighting machine on the face of the earth. And it's different than the private sector. We know it's different than the private sector. We hold it up as because these people, as on the pedestal, at least many of us who support it do, because people put their lives on the line to defend us. They're not welfare recipients. We're not redistributing wealth. We benefit from the United States military. Most of us choose a different type of life. We could all volunteer and try and get into the various military services, but the overwhelming majority of the citizenry does not. These are our warriors. And so we support our warriors, and we try to support their families. And in some cases, not enough. But that cannot be applied to our society as a whole. Here we have, in effect, a liberal writer who really doesn't like the distinction between civilian and military. It is stunning. The military trains its people, its personnel, to fight, to kill, in order to defend us. That's what they're trained to do. That's their whole purpose. They don't exist so we can redistribute wealth. They don't exist because we need a new health care system or child care system. The military exists to do things that armies do. The idea that we should project that kind of situation onto the broader society, onto the civilian society, well, that's an idea that every despot in world history has had. Not so much to militarize the population, but to change it. More when I return.
Mark Levin.
So from Christoph's point of view, the military is a socialist experiment, and if we could only figure out how to do that in the society at large, of course by denuding the military of its military personality and character, it would be perfect. So he's basically ripping down the military. The military doesn't exist for health care. The military exists to defend the nation and promoting some form of totalitarianism. I'll be right back. Nick in Virginia, Sirius Satellite. Go.
Good evening, Mark. Thank you for the outstanding lesson on the relationship of the military to the nation. It should be taught in every school. But I got to say, Mr. Christoph demonstrates a completely superficial and fatuous understanding of what life is like inside the military. He has no idea.
What would you like to tell him in about 60 seconds' time?
I can't tell my boss no. If I disobey my boss, I will go to jail, or in the wrong circumstances, I could even be executed. I don't have the right to form a union. I don't have the right to make disparaging comments about the president or the government officials. If you would like to give up a lot of freedoms in order to serve in the military and be the beneficiary of... Mark, let me say this about government health care. The Army's, the military's medical system in general is about as good as a government-run health care program could be, which is why it took my wife 7 years to see an orthopedic surgeon to get her knee repaired, which is why it took me 10 years for the same thing. I got prescribed an awful lot of Motrin and told, we'll see you later. So if you like waiting in lines and waiting a long time to see the doctor of your choice, then government-run health care is probably the best you're going to get in the military.
So you have been in the military, and your point is, look, I'm in the military to serve. There's an infrastructure here where that the hope is that it will properly support the military personnel. But when you're looking at all the social aspects of it, it doesn't work as smoothly as Mr. Christoph would like us to believe.
No, and as you said, I exist and I serve in order to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I am an instrument of the United States' national power. But our private sector, our private citizens, our fellow Americans, they don't have to do this. We do this so that they can live their lives and pursue their happiness in accordance with our American ideals.
Now, here's what gets me, Nick. You know how they always talk about separating civilian from military, which is always a good idea. But isn't it interesting that now they're saying, no, wait a minute, let's take the military component out and let us combine the social structure that we've built for the military. But the fact of the matter is we don't have a military for the social structure. We have a social structure, as imperfect and inefficient as it is, to support our warriors.
Correct. And Mark, let me say this also. What is the annual defense budget to support this military?
I think it's
$560 billion, and that supports 1.2 million men and women in uniform.
It's an excellent point. All right, Nick, thank you.